to hear Dr. Amos Wilson speak before, and it is truly a pleasure and, as I said, a great educational experience. As we all know, unfortunately, our children, our African children, are in crisis, and I think Dr. Wilson is going to be able to help us to understand this and maybe offer some suggestions as to some things that we can do as parents and educators to change this. So let's please welcome Dr. Amos Wilson.
Introduction and for the invitation to appear here before you today. I'm going to talk a bit about what I perceive as the post-civil rights era. Officially titled my talk today, Beyond White Racism, Beyond Civil Rights and Human Rights, and into African Revolution. I'm going to center on the concept of revolution today. And I will tell you why, because I'm sure some of you will think that that's somewhat passé to be talking about revolution. That was something people talked about in the 60s and the 70s, and why I talk about it now. But I think and I hope that as a result of what I have to say here today, you might change your opinion about that particular topic. I'd like to, of course, commend you for your celebration of African history, of African American history. And of course, we recognize the importance of studying such history. However, I think we still underestimate the value of the study of African history. I think we celebrate it without analyzing it. We search it and look for heroes without understanding that one of its major purposes is to teach us lessons on how to cope with the present and with the future. Not only are those people who do not know their history doomed to repeat it, but those who often misread it are often doomed to repeat it as well. And those who misread and perhaps fail to read it at all may not have a chance to repeat it at all. And I think we have reached this point where our failure to understand history is going to put us in a position where we won't have a chance to learn it again. The survival of our people is at the crossroads today. And our study of history then should be about more than celebrating our heroes, about more than celebrating the struggles, than just keeping eyes on the prize. Those are valuable things, obviously. But we must look at history in terms of coming to understand our current and our future obligations and what must be accomplished by those things. If we're not careful, we will be beguiled by our study of history. Many of us who have not studied, for instance, Reconstruction history, the history of the United States, particularly of African Americans during the 1860s and 70s, may think that we are entering a new era in American history. We may think that the things that we're witnessing today, the elections of blacks to political office, and their appointment to various positions, their activities in various corporations, and so forth, is something new in American history. And yet, a study of Reconstruction history will quickly convince us that we are currently undergoing deja vu. Many of us see history as a continuing progress upward. and onward. We have bought the American concept of progress, the idea that things must, over time, necessarily get better. There is no law in the universe that tells you that your future survival is assured, that you will continue to exist now and into the future. There have been races and ethnic groups who have been virtually wiped out on this planet. And there is no guarantee that your own group will not be wiped out as well. The idea then that you must necessarily arrive at a point greater than those of your ancestors could possibly be an illusion. The idea that somehow through some great automation you are going to be in a better condition than your people is an illusion often of not studying history and recognizing that progressions and regressions occur in history, that integrations and disintegrations occur in history. History is not a fairy tale where certain things are accomplished and then people live happily ever after. And many of us think then that the accomplishments that we've made up to this point means that we are only going to expand them in the future. I think you had better think about that again. And I'll point out today why we must not be so optimistic as to be foolish. In fact, let us go back for a moment to an article written in the Ebony magazine, October 1981, wherein Lerone Bennett, who wrote the book Black Power USA, I think wrote his conclusion to the book. When I read that book, Black Power USA, and I guess it was published back in, the 60s, maybe, or 70s, at least, early 70s. And I finished reading it, I said, the last chapter of this book is missing. You know, it went on to laud Black Power during the Reconstruction era and so forth. And yet somehow the logical conclusions were not drawn at the end of that book. The lessons that that book implied were not expressed openly and completely. And consequently then, I think some people would have been left with the wrong impression. But lo and behold, he did write the final chapter, but not in the book itself, but in the magazine. The second Reconstruction is history repeating itself. This is October 1981. And he titled it, as you can see here, The Second Time Around. Will history repeat itself and rob blacks of the gains of the 1960s? So he's dealing with the issue again. We gained it once and we lost it. Is there any law in the universe that says we will not lose it again? And I like the introduction here. He starts out by saying, over. It was, at long last, over and done with. How could anyone doubt it? How could anyone fail to see that the race problem had been solved forever? One man who had no doubt said, all distinctions founded upon race or color have been forever abolished in the United States. Another who saw things this way said the category of race had been abolished by law and that there were no more colored people in this country. Thus spoke the dreamers and the prophets and victims in the first Reconstruction of the 1860s and the 1870s. I don't think I have to elaborate on this kind of attitude. We run into too many youngsters today who say, oh, that was in slavery time. Oh, those were the things that you talk about in the 60s, that's the 60s and the 70s. We're in a new day now. You're not in a new day, ladies and gentlemen. The same words that we were saying today, the same words that we're saying today, the same words that people said over 100 years ago. Why are we in a new day when we're saying the same thing that someone said 100 years ago? He goes on to say, and it is worth emphasizing here at the very beginning that these flights into fantasy were based on the same hard facts that gripped the imagination of blacks in the second Reconstruction of the 1960s and 70s, there was, for example, a black man in the U.S. Senate in the 1870s. And there was a black governor in Louisiana. In the 1860s and the 1870s, as in the 1960s and 1970s, there were black sheriffs and mayors in the South. And there was open speculation about a black vice presidential candidate. So the Jesse Run is not new in Black American history, ladies and gentlemen. There was, moreover, a network of civil rights laws that seemed to settle the issue beyond all possibility of dispute or recall. Same kind of situation we talked about here today when you try to tell our people that laws don't protect anyone. There are so many of us who believe that fair housing laws and anti-discrimination laws, civil rights laws, and voting laws, and so forth, guarantee our freedom. What an illusion. What a flight into fantasy. Laws are no stronger than their enforcers. And the same people who pass those laws are the same people who are responsible for enforcing the law. And if the people then who enforce the law no longer decide to do so, the laws then are of no value and have no power. Ultimately, then, fairness rests, and the fairness of treatment rests, not in laws, but in the activities of people, and in the attitude and consciousness of people. And if people who are responsible for enforcing those laws change their attitudes, then the treatment of those people whose freedom is protected by those so-called laws is now changed as well. You cannot put your faith in a white man's law and in laws enforced by whites. I have warned people many times that if it comes one day where the society has to make a choice between feeding white children and feeding black children, no amounts of civil rights laws or any other laws on the books